I'll reveal my vault to you, but only if you're truly ready. In 1945, Jack Benny crafted the most legendary vault in radio lore. It was pure fiction, creaking doors, alarms, and gags about his legendary cheapness. Yet Jack possessed a real vault as well, one that remained sealed for half a century after he passed away. Inside lay audio tapes marked, "Do not open." When scholars finally listened decades later, they heard Jack's own voice confessing secrets that could have ruined everything he built. Those recordings explain why he truly abandoned vaudeville and what really happened during the mysterious missing years of the war. He entered the world as Benjamin Kubelski on February 14, 1894, though his mother had already chosen that path long before he drew breath. Emma Sachs Kubelski was expecting in Waukegan, Illinois, but she boarded a train all the way to Chicago just to deliver him there. She was convinced a big city birth certificate would pave the way for her son to become a world-renowned violin virtuoso. A small-town boy simply wouldn't do. She wanted greatness for him. Frail in health but iron-willed, she had decided from the start that little Benjamin would fill concert halls with his violin. His father, Meyer, told a different immigrant tale. Arriving from Poland, hawking wares on Chicago streets, scraping together enough to open a saloon. He viewed show business as no profession for a respectable Jewish son. But Emma's voice carried the house. From the moment Benjamin could grip a bow, she molded him. By age 3, the family was back in Waukegan, in a modest home on South Genesee Street. From the front window, young Ben could see Lake Michigan glittering, and that view became his escape. He was supposed to practice violin 2 hours daily, but his eyes kept drifting to the water. Meyer kept the saloon running and later added a haberdashery, while Emma drove the music lessons relentlessly. When Sister Florence arrived in 1900, Benjamin became the doting big brother, yet his own days still revolved around scales and arpeggios. On his 6th birthday that year, he received a half-size violin. Formal lessons with Professor Harlow began at once, 50 cents twice a week. The boy was gifted. So gifted that Waukegan crowned him a prodigy. Trips to Chicago followed to study with Hugo Korczak at the conservatory. Crowds raised money to send him to Europe. He stunned everyone by refusing. The violin path was already slipping from his grasp. At school, he flunked nearly everything, pulled endless pranks, and skipped class. His masterpiece, smearing Limburger cheese behind the radiator in winter. When the stench hit, the entire building shut down. Expelled as a freshman, he never returned. By then, he had already landed a job playing in the pit orchestra at Waukegan's Barrison Theater. While classmates wrestled with algebra, he accompanied live vaudeville. His real classroom was his father's saloon, filled with traveling acts and larger-than-life characters who taught him what made audiences howl. In 1911, the Marx Brothers rolled into town. Their mother, Minnie, watched 17-year-old Ben play and immediately offered him $7.50 a week, plus room and board to tour with them. His parents said no. Show business would ruin him. That door slammed shut forever. Undeterred, that same year, Benjamin left school for good and joined a vaudeville act with 43-year-old pianist-cornetist Cora Salisbury, a respectable widow who promised his parents she'd shield him from temptation. They toured the Midwest non-stop, 4 shows a day in dusty halls. The act was billed from grand opera to ragtime. He earned $7.50 a week. It wasn't much, but it was the spark. Then, in 1912, disaster loomed. Famed violinist Jan Kubelik threatened to sue over the similar name. Terrified, Benjamin became Ben K. Benny. That only lasted until another performer, Ben Bernier, came after him. Thus was born Jack Benny, a name borrowed from Navy slang and cemented over dinner with comic Benny Rubin. By 1921, it was permanent. When Cora left the act in 1914, Jack partnered with pianist Lyman Woods. By 1916, they were pulling $350, $400 a week. Serious money. They played the finest theaters coast to coast, mixing legitimate music with goofy faces and impeccable comic timing. Then in 1917 came the Palace Theater in New York, the pinnacle of vaudeville. They followed an animal act and bombed spectacularly. The partnership dissolved. At 23, Jack enlisted in the Navy as World War I raged. Assigned to Great Lakes Naval Training Station, he played violin for official functions, until one fateful review. Midway through a solemn piece, the sailors booed. Fellow sailor Pat O'Brien yelled, "Tell him a joke!" Jack fired off one line. The place exploded. The comedian was born that night. He began appearing regularly in the bass show, The Great Lakes Review, portraying a bumbling recruit named Izzy for audiences of 5,000. He discovered timing, charm, and that one perfectly delivered joke beat an hour of perfect music every time. When the war ended in 1918, America was weary and broke. Jack leaned hard into the penny-pinching persona he'd honed in the service. His new solo act, Fiddle Funology, mixed deliberately awful violin with gags about being cheap. Audiences adored it. They saw themselves in him. He reunited with Lyman Woods, retooled the act with more comedy, and soon commanded top billing across the country. The Palace failure still haunted him, but he trimmed the music, sharpened the jokes, and slowly became the master of the slow burn. One deadpan line that left thousands helpless with laughter. By 1924, at age 30, and after more than a decade on the road, Jack hit Broadway in Earl Carroll's Vanities. This was different. He deliberately played the violin just badly enough to get laughs, though he could still play beautifully when he wished. Dry wit, perfect pauses, self-mockery. New York had never seen anything quite like it. 2 years later, in The Great Temptations, he pushed further, stretching sketches, ad-libbing, ignoring the script. Producers fumed, but audiences roared. Jack Benny was rewriting the rules in real time. That same period brought Sadie Marks into his life, though they had met briefly years earlier when she was a star-struck 14-year-old at a Marks family Passover Seder in Vancouver. He'd snuck out rather than hear her play. She got revenge by stone-facing his entire performance the next night. They reconnected in 1925-26 when 20-year-old Sadie, now working at the May Company hosiery counter in Los Angeles, sold Jack so much lingerie he broke sales records. Daily visits and constant phone calls followed. On January 14, 1927, they married in Waukegan. During the ceremony, it was the bride, renamed Mary Livingston for the stage, who fainted. Jack sent her one red rose every single day for the rest of his life. 48 years without missing once. Radio beckoned in 1932. Vaudeville was dying. Mary pushed him toward the microphone. His first show, the Canada Dry program, debuted May 2, 1932. Early ratings were weak. He was still trying to impress with serious violin. Then he flipped the script, made the violin comically bad, turned himself into the butt of every joke, and America fell in love. In 1933, he jumped to CBS and declared himself eternally 39. The immortal vault gag was born. Absurd underground fortress, moats, ancient guards, alarms. Pure theater of the mind, and the country ate it up. By 1936, the classic cast assembled. Announcer Don Wilson, bandleader Phil Harris, and valet Rochester Van Jones, played by Eddie Anderson, the first black performer with a continuing role on network radio, who regularly outsmarted his boss and got the last laugh. When Southern stations threatened to drop the show over Rochester, Jack refused to appear without him. From 1937 to 1955, the Jack Benny program dominated the ratings, often Schwan. He earned fortunes, yet gave generously. 10% of income to war bonds, Endless USO tours, 32,000 miles, 3 million troops entertained. The fictional vault became a national institution. Fans begged him to open it for charity. Movies, however, remained a struggle. Early flops in 1929-30, the jewelry smuggling scandal of 1937, fined $10,000 alongside George Burns, and 1945's infamous The Horn Blows at Midnight all became running jokes on his own show. He turned every failure into comedy gold. Television arrived in 1950. Nervous at 56, he conquered it instantly. The show ran 15 triumphant years, mentoring Johnny Carson, hosting presidents-to-be, and turning the vault into Cold War satire, complete with flamethrowers and guard alligators. Jack Benny died of pancreatic cancer on December 26, 1974, at age 80. His will revealed a $35 million today fortune, quiet philanthropy, and the famous 1729 Stradivarius. The stingy miser had been the greatest act of all. And now, in 2025, the sealed tapes have finally surfaced. The Radio Vault podcast is releasing the long-suppressed, lost episodes. We're hearing Jack's real voice, unscripted, unguarded, explaining the choices he never dared tell the public. The vault is opening at last, and the man behind the myth is more fascinating, more human, and far funnier than even his greatest fans ever imagined.